KindessCan, the podcast, with radio personality Jane Lindley Thomas and psychologist Paul Bushell. Because every act of kindness, no matter how big or small, can change lives. In this series, Jane and Paul hope to enrich your life by giving you practical tools on how to be kinder in your relationships with yourself, with those around you, at home, work, and in your community.
So this is a very exciting day in the land of KindessCan as we welcome Kevin Fraser to our screens and microphones. Hi, Kev. So nice to see you.
Hello. Thanks. I felt the same way.
Yay. Paulie Bushell, how are you, friend?
Hello, Jane. Hello, Kevin. It's so wonderful to welcome you onto our show, Kevin. Thanks for making the time to chat with us.
Thanks, guys. I was going to sleep in, but here we are.
Here we are. I must say that I feel like I've basically watched you like grow from like a baby moth into like a little cocooned being, and now you're like flying with like the most radiant wings all around the world.
Oh, stop it.
No, seriously, I can remember going to a splashy fen. Oh gosh, I mean, I'm giving my age away now. But you were a latte, bro. I don't even think you should have been there. But you were there.
Probably not.
But you started the whole journey for yourself, right? As spin doctor. And that was like in your early teens, right? DJing.
Yeah, exactly. Although I don't know what I was doing at Splashy, but that's exactly where it started. Doing little mobile gigs and then kind of progressing into the hardcore nightclub scene of Durban.
And then from there, where to from there?
Well, I basically took a step backwards or forwards, whichever way you want to look at it. I moved to Benoni, and then I stayed there for like about a year, and kind of I said, no, I've got to do the Joburg scene, you know. And then that was just really hard for me. It didn't have that like warm hug from Durban that I was used to. Then I realized it was just the humidity down here. But quickly moved to Sandton, and then tried to like get actually into actual Joburg itself, and then start DJing there. And then from there, Australia. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Benoni, but from Benoni to the world, all great South Africans seem to do some time in Benoni.
Because life is so rough out there, and you learn so much streets like cred that you're like, I gotta succeed, man.
And I mean, Kev, from the DJing scene to being honestly one of the funniest human beings, you can make me, I get like, I start to get like short of breath, and I snort, and then I start to drool a bit and my eyes start to weep. I mean, you are just so funny. I mean, so where to from the club scene to actually like the social commentary side of stuff?
Yeah. I wish I could get video responses from people, because that makes me feel so full when you say that you like, you know, snort laughed at stuff. It's so cool. I think it's like, it was basically my third year or second or third year in Australia. After studying there and working, like your longing for South Africa really starts to like take its toll on your soul, you know. And I hadn't actually had a visa at the time that allowed me to come back to South Africa without voiding everything. So people that kind of followed the spin doctor vibe from my DJ days were kind of like, yo, dude, you've disappeared off the globe. Like, do you want to like fill us in on what's going on? Like some of my mates especially felt quite like separated from my life now that I was down under. So I kind of got frustrated at that as well. And my spin doctor career wasn't taking off in Australia, well, at least the way I was kind of hoping it would. So I started making a video diary out of frustration, I think, you know. And it was one particular night in Melbourne that I was just lying in bed and whipped out my iPhone 2 or whatever it was at the time. And I did a little bit of a rant. I was like, okay, here we go. This was my train ride today from Melbourne CBD to home, because I lived like in the bush pretty much. Rent was cheap out there. And, but we know the dollar is strong compared to the rand. But, I made this rant on my train ride experience, and I did it in multiple accents, and I just commented on everything that I was experiencing on my day. And because Australia's ahead in time, I woke up the next day and it had gone like viral at that time, which was quite interesting. I didn't really know what to do. So people were like, no, more, do another video. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll create a page called Kevin Fraser, and I'll start posting something there every now and then. And then it became like religious. Every Thursday I'd post a little clip on something, and it was quite exciting to find new topics, and then boom. Yeah.
Well, have you seen Kevin's commentary from the pantry? from the Bantry. Have you seen it? It's one of my favorites. It's one of my absolute favorite things in the world.
I don't think which country it was at.
Oh, your girlfriend had those like corn puff things, and the Marmite and the Avo.
I've done 2 pantry videos actually. The one was in my very sophisticated Melbourne diet pantry, and the other one was from my South African pantry. Yeah.
Oh no, I think that's the beauty of you, and we're going to get onto the kind of deep dive of a serious topic shortly. But what I love about you, and I think that the joy that is you, is the relevance. I mean, you can talk about, the heat, you can talk about what's in your cupboard, you can talk about the crime, you can talk about the cashiers. The one the other day,
I was about to say, my bad.
But not the cashing out of the goods, but 2 days ago was when you're arriving there and you've got a trolley load of stuff, and she says, "Do you want a packet?" And you're like, Kevin says, "No, I'm going to put this one on my pockets." Like, #OVS, I need a packet. Obviously, I need a packet today. The joy.
And then you say that, and then you still get like, so you're going to take the packet? Or that's the beauty of South African humor, right? Like, we're forced by circumstance to like understand each other on so many levels. We have so many beautiful languages in this country. So we're constantly trying to like understand each other and like cross all our different cultural barriers. And it makes it beautiful that our sarcasm and our crassness is like lives in us. And that's something I struggled with down under, but yeah.
So again, I think that's also one of the things I love about you, is that the accents that you use, there's like twists and twangs of things that we recognize, but it doesn't belong to a group per se. It is kind of a collective.
Belongs to all of us, right?
Yeah.
But the frustration, I mean, yesterday I was I had a meeting in Durban North, and I parked the cars, like, cool, first hour free. I was over an hour, go to the parking meter thing to pay for my ticket, and the thing just does not want to accept a card. So I'm like, cool. So I had to go upstairs, cross the road, and I think I mentioned this to you. I had to draw money. So I drew 100 Rand, like put all my security up at the ATM because I'm drawing 100 Rand. And then I had to buy Rolos and get some change. But now I didn't want to take 100 Rand. So this is where the video idea comes from. Now I want to do something on how like frustrating parking machines are to pay. It's like, you want my money, I don't want to give it to you, but like at least make it easier for me. Like,
so I mean, Kev, you've broken the 1 million mark, and obviously with that comes so much love, and people sending such kind words to you and adoration. But I suppose the flip side to that, and that's what we really want to touch on today, is the underbelly of how unkind people can actually be out there.
The dark side, yeah.
I mean, have you had experience with that?
Yeah, I think it's something I've struggled with over time as you gain more traction or popularity with your content or your live gigs and stuff, and you've kind of opened yourself to scrutiny and people coming at you with all sorts of commentary and stuff. And I think, when people get to know you on this personal level, like you see my videos, like I'm here, I'm raw, I'm authentic. I guess for some people, they feel the need to just like project and be nasty, which I've had a lot of. Or some people just feeling like they know you completely, so therefore they might know what's best for you and give you these hardcore opinions. And it's up to me or anyone that experiences something like this to try and manage that. And managing that is really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm often amazed by what people feel they can get away with saying. That it is sort of, where's the boundary? Where's the limit in some of the things that you feel that you can say on some of those platforms? Some of it starts becoming incredibly personal and hurtful and hard not to take in a very emotional way. And I'm sure it must take a lot of regulating to filter through that sometimes.
And so much energy, because it's like we live in a time where it's like so easy to obviously take so many things personally. But I mean, how can you not, when it's literally I am my brand? And sometimes it's so hard to like differentiate those things. There's a blurry line, and we're so hardwired to like just take the negative and ride on that, even though you can have 150 beautiful messages. And I get such incredible messages and stories from people, but then you'll get that one and then you're like, but why? Or what have I done? And you'll take it so personally. But I've learned to kind of try and manage it and understand that it's sometimes a reflection of what they might be going through, or maybe something's happening in their life that they just feel the need to do this. I actually had one the other day, and I just couldn't understand this woman, like why she felt the need to comment on my relationship, which I'd chosen at times to kind of just share an image or a post about my partner and I on socials, because people like that little personal touch and the insights into your life. So now and then you give them that. But this was all about how this lady thought she knew what was best for me and fabricated this whole idea of me and my relationship. And I just thought, wow, like I was gobsmacked. But being a comedian, I wanted to try and like also just be like, what are we getting here? Like,
yeah. I suppose it's also difficult, like, fine, have a go at me. I can deal with that. But don't have ill words about my lady. Like that's not your place. So I suppose it's a different response to different content, right?
100%. Yeah, it's really hard sometimes. But you know, I try and flip that now and refer to maybe a memory or something in my head that can counteract all of that, even though I have that feeling at the time. So, for example, my last live show, which was in East London, I had a guy say to me after the show, he's like, oh, my wife is a huge fan of your work, blah, blah. I was like, oh, how you got dragged here? And he's like, yeah, I totally did. And to be honest, I was like, oh, here we go. Just another artist or whatnot. And he had all these expectations and he had this like preconceived idea of how the performance was going to go. And he's like, I'm officially a fan and I got to see you in the flesh and understand you on a personal level. And that's the beauty with and the importance of having to do live versus the online world, because there's so much room for assumption and stuff on online communities, and you have to like bring it together by showing people your real life stuff so that you can have their buy-in, I guess.
Jay and I often talk about that manual process of your negativity brain, right? Wanting to kind of just creepy crawly hold on to that stuff. And there's a lot of negative stuff out there because people feel they have a right to kind of get away with and say whatever they want on social media, which I think is problematic, actually. And I'm all for freedom of speech, but it kind of crosses a line sometimes. But really, I think what you're talking about there, which is so cool, is that manual control of being like, yeah, that is something and it deserves some of my attention, that negative comment. Maybe I need to reflect on why. Maybe I need to choose whether it's appropriate to or not to respond, because I have the ability to do that. Also realizing and recognizing that bully is someone who has been bullied, right? This is more than likely a reflection of some of their stuff. But in this day, I also choose to collect a pile of evidence, and it's all there for the taking. That's wonderful and affirming and light. And it's so easy to forget that sometimes.
Yeah, like when I watched this TED Talk last night about a guy talking about how to not take things so personally, and his idea of having to like separate yourself from the situation and go like, look, when you take things personally, it's like you're making the other person like kind of responsible for the way you're feeling. And it's just so interesting just to think about that idea in itself and go, wow. So when it happens again and someone says, oh, you're a narcissist or you're so selfish, and go, okay, so that's something that you're projecting, but I should more be like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I know who I am, what I stand for. Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting when we start looking at the bullying with empathy for the person that's throwing the slander, because I think a lot of the time we want to go onto the defense, but when we start flicking it around and actually seeing, and we chatted about this briefly yesterday, Kev, that the people that are throwing the hatred are so desperately in need of someone they can follow that has some substance and like a moral compass. And, you touched on it yesterday, like, who are people using as people that they can follow that are of good substance and wholesome love and kindness and compassion and unity?
And that is so little of that, now. And we're going into a time where it's just such an interesting time to be alive, where there's so much happening and there's so much censorship and there's so much control of speech. But like I said, we can switch on the TV and we can be exposed to stuff that we should not be exposed to during primetime television, or at least our kids. Not that I have any kids, but that's the thing. And it's like we have to make those decisions ourselves and on what we're going to feed our mind, body, and soul, and who we're going to be influenced by, and what sort of role models we look up to, or what sort of leadership or role model we're going to take on for ourselves, And I think that's become more important, and something I also like try and hit a little bit of a button within my actual shows. Is go boom, like I'm doing the funny, yes, I'm writing that way, but here's a point I just want to make, because that's important in comedy too, is that you take away something that you can learn or resonate with, because everyone's fighting something.
What I love about what we're saying here is that, and it's a Gandhi quote comes to mind for me, that kind of be the change that you want to see in the world. And for all of us to be more conscious of that on social media, in our everyday postings, but also in our responses to what other people post. And if we want to see a world without bullies and we want to see a world with positive role models, be conscious of the values that you're putting out there, both in what you're posting and you're responding to. I was really alarmed when watching some of the news around that young learner in Limpopo who took her own life, and she had gone through a lot of bullying herself. And the news was asking people to respond to how they would deal with it if their child was being bullied. And I was really alarmed by how many of the people responding were saying things like, I would go in there and I would teach those young people a lesson, and I would threaten them with violence. And I thought to myself, we are a society that is so reactive and so quickly turns to violence. And it's actually not the solution to stopping bullying. And as the adults in the room, we've got to be so conscious of that. We don't fight fire with fire. And Jane, you touched on a really interesting concept there, that although bullying is not acceptable and there have to be consequences to bullying, it can't be reinforcing more violence or perpetuating more violence. It's just not a solution. And we've got to role model something different. And I would imagine that's true. And I'd be interested to know what you think, Kevin. That's got to be true on social media as well. The way we respond to stuff.
100%. We're so quick to react without thinking as well. And that's one of the troublesome areas in social media, is you can just click comments and go for it. And everything's reaction based and it's geared for that. And in the beginning, it was especially with things like Facebook, in the beginning, it was very exciting, positive space, and we can share all this awesome stuff. And remember the days where it was you had your status like Kevin Fraser is and it said ... and then you could update it and be like, is watching a movie, or is here, is on the loot, who cares, but it was exciting. But I think even looking back at one of, I think it was David Bowie's videos, and a comment in the 90s when the internet was becoming this thing with computers and stuff, and he said, we don't know what we've created yet. We've created this monster, and we're only entering that era now where we're seeing the effects of all of this stuff. I mean, Google's been around for 22 years now. That's crazy. But we're all online. We're all on these social networks and apps, and we've all got access to hit a comment button and just react. And these giants love us to react. They love keeping us on there to formulate our opinions, and they get traction, and everything can be swayed and interpreted in a different way. But I think because of that very problem, because it is a problem, it's making people more kind of living on edge and tense and ready to snap and ready just to take offense at everything. So we almost need to go back a few steps and rewire some cables.
But I mean, Kev, do you also feel that you have a huge responsibility to be a talking head for a generation? Because I mean, you're fresh, you're cool, you're young, you're hip. Your comedy is so funny, it's so relevant. But I never watch your comedy and feel like you're being patronizing. And I suppose that's a thin line as well. Is joking about something and actually belittling someone for the laugh.
100%. I mean, that's, again, I know I speak of the live show stuff often, but it's an example of that. When you go and watch some artists perform and they attack an audience member. And this happened a few months ago. I went to watch a show and I was just quietly watching in the back, and the artists, this couple were having such a great evening. They're just lovey-dovey. They were hands on each other's laps. They're just having a nice couple's night out, comedy dinner, blah, blah. Comedian kind of latched onto the husband and kind of just started pulling things about him and his weight and this and that. And I was just but it's funny on that level, but not for him who's paid to come and be here. What are we getting out of that? What are you getting out of that as a comedian? Why? Why do we have to belittle? Why do we have to attack him? How do you know what he's dealing with? There could be a million things he's dealing with. Instead, like bring it all onto yourself and then make points that way, or speak about real things and make them funny, like, you know, pantry stuff or kitchen appliances, like stuff, everyday stuff. That's why you're there. But comedy gives you that opportunity, as you say, you know, to take these things that we experience every day, whether it's politics and social issues and just our everyday stuff, and make them funny, but also making a point somehow. And I'm finding that more and more, the more I'm getting experience with doing stand-up, is that not only am I able to go that route and to make a point and comment on these subjects, but to also like try and inflict some change and be a leader in some way or another. And it's like a burning desire, like to actually do that. And I feel like wholeheartedly responsible for that. And I think the more feedback I get on a personal level with people's stories, you know, you say, oh, so funny, you did this video about this, boom, here's my story. And I read this thing, I'm like, wow. And then it happens all day, every day. And it really kind of just makes me feel I'm on the right path of that, because people are, you know, there's still hundreds and thousands of people that might watch your stuff, but they don't always comment. They don't always react, but they're there, they're watching and they're following, and they might enjoy you, but they're listening. And they're taking away something from that. And yeah, that's been a very powerful thing with video too.
I think what's also quite scary is how much school life has changed from when I was at school. I matriculated in 97, when Paulie was at school, when you were at school. And now when we go into schools as KindessCan and we're chatting to kids and to learners, how depression is something that is spoken about. And I'm so thrilled that it is, that it's not this taboo and shame. We've still got a lot of work to do. But controlling the sadness, because I look at learners now and there's so much sadness. And it was even pre-COVID. It wasn't just the knock-on effect of being 100%. Robbed of special moments and experiences and feeling isolated and insular.
COVID, yeah.
The world just seems to be so heavy out there. So again, I think I can. That's why I'm feeling like I can. I hear what you say when you say that you feel this like responsible. You feel responsible because you're a beacon out there. You have the opportunity to shine a light and cover things in a light-hearted way that is of access to people. I mean, Paulie, in the work that you do as well. I mean, it's quite sad to see the landscape out there at the moment.
Well, I suppose, and I think this is where Kevin is probably so well placed to be a role model for positive change, even in the digital world, especially in the digital world, is that ability to sometimes kind of laugh at ourselves and not have to take ourselves so seriously the whole time. So, of course, some issues are serious and they really matter, and we've got to learn how to talk about them better. But there also got to be some situations where we can laugh at ourselves and we can kind of see the funny side of things sometimes. Else everything just becomes too heavy and too stressful all the time. And I think as South Africans, humor has been a way that we've sometimes navigated really complicated things, just to be able to laugh at the silly things that we do, sometimes more serious than others. And I hope that we don't lose that. So although we have to up our consciousness around the way we speak about certain things, and we've got to up our ways of showing respect to one another, no doubt. And we've got a lot to do in that space. But I hope in that process, we don't lose our abilities to sometimes just laugh at how silly we can be, because we need that laugh sometimes. We need people like you, Kevin.
You know, this reminds me of I did my token one and only motivational speech, woohoo, at a school in KZN like last year. I was asked to come and just like, the school wanted me to just come and lift it up. Like you say, Jane, is like, so there's such a heavy weight in society at the moment. So, you know, come in and just like be like the cool young guy that like resonates with these kids. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to start this thing, because it was my first kind of little speech that was slightly on the serious side. But I thought, well, we've got to start by just building some rapport and with like a bit of comedy. But then I just decided to open up a bit about my struggles in the entertainment industry and just like hurdles that I faced, just so that they're like, okay, you know, he's human. He's not just like woke up one day and was like a big comedian or something like that. You know, he's been through all these things. And then I had the room. I just felt, you know, the room. And I think that's also a blessing, and the blessing and curse of my job is that I feel energy heavily. I'm spiritual, and I'm on that thing, but then the consequence also, like, I overanalyze everything, and I've thought about this pot plant next to me for quite some time now too. But I stood there and I had to get these guys some motivation, and I left them with a task at the end of my little speech, and the task was all to do with the internet and social media. I said, for the next 7 days, wake up every day in the morning for the first 60 minutes of your day, before you put your feet on the floor and put your stokies on and go for your breakfast cereal, whatever it is. Command your day. Don't open that phone and respond to the rest of the world. Read something, maybe go and have your breakfast and talk to your mom and dad, or go outside and just like think about, like really try and get your mind on that path, because we live in a society where we're so caught up and hell-bent on responding and seeing what everyone else, oh, look at so-and-so's in the Maldives, and this person's just got married, and oh my God, they're having a baby. And what that does over time is just continuously tell you that you're not damn good enough. And it's pushing these kids' self-esteem down the drain. And these are kids that are now growing up with, the phones and thing. I mean, when I grew up, I had like a Sony Ericsson the size of this table. Like, it's like, you could send like one text a year, but they're growing up with all of this and such an information overload that it's like messing with their spirituality, and human connection is so important. And I think that's the difference between what kids are having to experience today and what we might have grown up in our generations, where we sat and we watched the person talk to us and leech and spill their crumbs, and like it was all real, and we felt emotion on it, whereas a lot of it's just via the phone now or computers. And I think that is contributing to people feeling depressed and like useless and misguided.
It's like waking up in the morning and running across an emotional minefield and then trying to get on with your day. I think you're spot on. I think it's great advice.
So, I mean, Kev, I love watching your life. I love seeing you on your different adventures, bloody wearing a towel turban and dancing around the pool. I mean, I follow you. I love you. But what is difficult about the work that you do? Because I often think of someone like a Robin Williams who, he's the life and soul of the party, but when he goes home, he's so sad and introverted. Or, for example, Paul and I often chat about it as kindness facilitators. We hold ourselves to quite a high bar as being kind people. And when you're not being kind at home, but you've been kind to people at work or vice versa, or whatever it is, you're not keeping that kindness flowing. It's hard not to feel like a fraud sometimes, or being really hard on yourself. So what's hard for you? What's hard for you?
That is so true. And especially, I've noticed I've done some hardcore touring, and it's like, it's having to deal with the up and down of like, you go and you like perform, boom, and then the emotion, like it's just that up and down of that emotion, sometimes hard to deal with. But I counteract that with exercise, and that brings me back up to speed. I do feel like I'm actually quite introverted, and I'm to myself, and in my own time, when people are not seeing that hyper version of myself, I'm just chilled. I love to obviously talk, but I listen, I chill, and I be at peace with myself. I enjoy just my solitude. That's just who I am. But it's hard. It's the hardest part for me, especially the more you grow and gain in popularity, is, and in particular, having been back in South Africa over the pandemic and in a place where I'm much more popular than like Australia or overseas, is the expectation of the general public and my fans and people to be like I always need to be on that level. And I'm like, but I'm also just human. And if I go out and it's busy and there's people, and it's like, sometimes I just want to sit and have a glass of wine and like chat to like Jabulani next to me, and not have to be that, and not have to do photos, and just be like, it's along with social media and technology with a lot of people, not everyone, but there's this like need to like have their piece. And I had a photo of Kevin, and it kind of makes me feel often like I'm being objectified and I'm just this thing. And it's hard sometimes, but I've also had to kind of just realize, look, people just, these are fans, and they adore you, and people resonate with you, and some people just really truly love you, and that's amazing. So just appreciate that for a second. But it's how you handle these things. Like the other day I was sitting, like I literally like mid-fork, burger, sauce, everything going, this lady like tapping on the shoulder, like, can I please have a photo? And I was like, previously, I would have dropped what I was doing, like wiping my sure, like, let's do it. But I turned to, I said, that's absolutely fine. Can I just finish my conversation, my meal? And when I'm on my way out, you can come and some people take that as a pass off, but I'm like, well, then clearly you're not a fan. And other people like respect, like, okay, cool, that's great. Like, sorry, no worries. Because some people just get excited and they don't know how to behave. But it is very hard sometimes. I mean, even just going grocery shopping, it's like not always the fact that people come up to you and they want that, but it's also just the feeling of being watched, or like you can't even walk around with like the odd snolly because people will be like, see that? I see that from the corner. I think it's Kevin Fraser. What's he doing buying eggs? I'm like, I don't know, because sunny side up. I like that. It's okay.
So we're talking about fans loving you, but have you had I'm sure you've had many, but fan moments where you've met someone and you just been like, oh my gosh, because I'm sure you're exposed to so many wonderful people in the work that you do.
No, you do, but I'm actually a bit useless. I never know who anyone is. Like Oprah could walk past me, I'd be like, she looks just like Oprah, mate. And like, yeah, that's because it is, Kevin. That's because it is. So yeah, no, I haven't. Although I saw Cameron Diaz from a distance once, and I was like,
fangirling.
Fangirling. Yeah.
I love it, Cameron Diaz from a distance. That is epic. Oh, we could just chat for 10,000 hours, couldn't we, Paulie? Isn't this just so lovely?
Yeah, Kevin, thank you for first of all the laughs, but more than that, thank you for sharing a bit about Kevin, behind the Kevin Fraser today. I think that's so inspiring and meaningful, and a reminder to all of us to be conscious that behind that image on social media, behind that idea that you have of someone, there's a whole world going on, and we have to kind of really try to be more empathetic and caring with that reality on social media and in the world. So thank you for bringing that to life for us today.
And I think it's important to also just remember, like, if it all does get a bit overwhelming, it does get too much, and I've done it once or twice before, just log out, my brew. Just log out for a couple of weeks. Just go into the bush. And find
detox, take a break.
I think what also comes to mind for me is, Paulie, we often chat about we can hold different feelings at the same time. So, Kevin can put out a funny video, but that doesn't mean that he's not having a hard day. Or he can be the funniest thing in your day, but when you see him out in public, he's also somebody's son. Do you know what I mean? Like he's also a human being. We have the ability to do things at the same time, and they can be on different sides of the spectrum, so to speak. Kevin, I love you, and I really mean that. I do. I mean,
me too.
How funny is this story? I have to just quickly share a story with you. So I go away like ages ago, and I've got this hard drive. I plug it in, and I'm working away from home, and I'm going through old photographs and sending photos home to my husband. I'm like, oh, look at the children at this stage and this age. And I found this folder called ECR DJ Summer Camp. I'm like, what on earth is this? What is this? And I click on it, and there I am in the middle and with these kids around me. And I'm like, oh, never. That's not who I think it is. And I'm zooming with the finger, zoom. And as true as God made apples fall off trees, it's Kevin bloody Fraser. You did a DJ summer camp at East Coast Radio. What age were you? I mean, what age was that picture?
I don't know. I think I ate a lot more chicken since then, though.
And your hair was good.
Yeah, I would have been like 15, 14.
Oh, my darling. And look at you now. What's on the cards for you? I mean, what do you want to do in the next couple of years? I mean, you're such a driven human being. What's next for you and your brand?
Well, obviously, as society slowly gets back, I can do tours and stuff. So that's great. Like still like traveling, doing shows. I am obviously trying to work on the American thing. I got to get into that sort of scene, and I've been interested in TV and that sort of field. But I think what gets me going more is the idea of my new show concept, which is far from being launched, I think, still. But it's called In Between the Palms, and it's basically like, I want to say it's like my own little talk show kind of thing online, but it's like what we're doing now, like just to discuss and get real about subjects and give a bit of my opinion, and don't always have to be funny. There's the real side, of like just having conversations with people about certain subjects and getting people on the show that have their own experience and expertise. And I think it's important more than ever for the public to be able to connect with people on this level, you know, and let them know that they're not alone in whatever they might be going through, and that we're all human and we all go through the same stuff, and we all want the same sort of things in life, you know, happy relationship, love, good career, job, inner peace. Yeah, I just want to go down that alley for a bit, and it's literally 2 palm trees, so I'll be in between them just to specify. Yeah, and there'll be a couch.
Well, if you ever see 2 crazy, kind creatures peeping around from around the palm trees, that's Jane and me following you. Hi.
Kevin Fraser, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your heart. We thank you for your vulnerability. We love, treasure, and adore you. May all your voyages be happy ones until we connect again.
Thanks, guys.
Keep shining, Kevin, making Zanzi proud. We love you.
Lots of love, everybody. Go well.
Bye.
You've been listening to Kindness Can, the podcast. Find out more at kindnesscan.co.za.